Good afternoon, everyone. Sharice Jervis Hill here, president and founder of Events to Remember and PR to Remember, with our Entrepreneurs podcast, Coffee with Cher. And I have one of my favorite buds here that
Yeah.
I am excited to share with you all, Mr. Andrew Castellano. He is the founder and owner of Sharc Creative. Andrew, what's up, friend?
Hey, Sharice, it's a pleasure. I get to start the day with you. This is awesome.
Oh,
Thank you for the invitation. I really appreciate you thinking of me, and I love what you're doing, and it's an honor and a privilege to be on your show.
oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to have you. So, as we do our little afternoon cheers, so cheers to you, friend.
Cheers. Cheers to you.
I love that mug. Show that again. That's pretty
Mm.
cool.
Yeah, this is an actually this is like a vintage Shark Creative mug.
I like
Um,
that.
it's been around for a little while. It's more like it kind of sits in my office, but given the circumstances, I figured I had to break it out today.
Had to
So
break it out, of
yes,
course.
yes,
Love it.
this is actually the an older version of the logo. And we can
Oh,
get
I
into
see
some
it
of
a
this,
little
but you
bit.
could,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this was the when I started Shark many years ago, primarily as an on hold messaging company. This was
Yeah.
really the on hold messaging logo, really all
Uh-huh.
about the on hold. But as you can see, like above my head,
Yeah, I see it.
we've kind
Like
of
the A
changed.
is like a more
Yeah,
sleek and
yeah, we
yeah.
changed it a little bit on the font, but it's more just, Shark Creative and then all of the things we do with Shark Creative so that it's kind of morphed. But it's the same, the shark is still always sort of kind of consistent through all the brand uh, changes we made along the way.
So let's talk about it, right?
Yeah.
So, Shark Creative, like tell everyone because I love your story. I know some of your story just in our interactions, but I just love the way you kind of have morphed the company over the years. So tell our listeners, and again, this podcast is about entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs, and I just love your journey and I love all the pivots. And so
Mm.
definitely share with our listeners, let everybody know, kind of tell us about your
Yeah.
company and how you got started.
Well, thanks for that opportunity. There's no doubt about it. My heart sort of glows when you talk about entrepreneurs, and I love meeting new entrepreneurs myself. I worked for a company for many years. I worked in the radio business. I
Hmm.
made a career in local radio. I worked for WFAS, which was 103.9 and 12:30 a.m. Right in the heart of Westchester County. So for those folks listening who used to listen to the snow closings in the morning, it was on WFAS. And we're talking about late 90s. So I'm
Hmm.
dating myself a bit, but late 90s into the 2000s, that was my job. I worked for a radio station and I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
Hmm.
I made wonderful relationships in the community, including Marsha Gordon at the BCW in 2001,
Hmm.
because while I was working for the radio station, my job there was to help them bring in sponsors and bring in advertisers. So I was really talking with all kinds of business owners,
Hmm.
whether it was local car dealers or
Hmm.
hospitals or government or spas and salons or air conditioning and heating companies, you name it. And there was an opportunity to really get them to see the value in audio. And to this
Hmm.
day, Sharice, I talk a lot about the power of audio. What does audio do for your business? And radio is really at the root of all of it. Radio is one of the greatest ways to get your name out there into the community,
Hmm.
um, kind of help brand the business. So I got an education learning about radio, learning
Hmm.
about audio,
Hmm.
how it works. And along the way, a lot of clients would say, could you take the radio commercial and put it on my phone? Now, there it was. That was the
Hmm.
first little seed because people didn't know where to go to get it. And I said,
Hmm.
wow, I have the relationships, I have the clients. I can figure out how to get this message on their phone. And I looked up how to do that and went to
Hmm.
work on finding the right partner that would make such a unit. And back then it was actually cassettes were the first thing we did. It
Wow.
was it was a tape cassette, and
Hmm.
then it became a CD player.
Mm-hmm.
Then it became an MP3 player.
Mm-hmm.
And for many years, it was an MP3 where we would download or upload the message onto this box that would connect to the old phone system. Today, you don't even need the box. You really just send the file and the company, or in sometimes we have access to their phone system. We just drop the file in there. But the point of all this is that I was an entrepreneur from an early age when I recognized that people needed an on hold solution. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when Sharc Creative was born. So I was still working for WFAS, but
Mm-hmm.
in 2001, kind of was moonlighting this Sharc Creative thing. And it
Mm-hmm.
turns out that the gentleman who was the production manager at the time was the guy that I went to ask to help create the actual on hold. So I was
Mm-hmm.
more the boots on the ground marketing founder of the company, but without my partner in crime, who was the one writing and producing the messages, I wouldn't have been able to do what I did. And his
Mm-hmm.
name is Jim Feldman, and he's actually still with me today,
Wow.
in many other capacities as we've
Yeah.
morphed the company. But
Mm-hmm.
from day one, we've been really helping lots of businesses share that in the
Mm-hmm.
community. If you call, whether it's the Business Council or Nonprofit Westchester or Pepe Auto Group or
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of hotels and restaurants, we write and produce the messages you hear on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, times have changed. People will tell me, well, we don't use the phone anymore. And yeah, the people are not using their traditional desktop phone the way
Mm-hmm.
they once did,
Yeah.
but they use their cell phone. And if
Mm-hmm.
you have a voice over IP,
Mm-hmm.
that means you probably have an app that would be on your phone that you can make an outgoing call on. And for those listening, if you own a company or you're in business and you have a voice over IP phone, it's imperative that you teach yourself, but also your employees to use the app on their phone, because if you do that, when
Mm-hmm.
you make that outgoing call, it will say the name of your business, not using your cell phone number. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you own a heating and air conditioning company and if you got 40 people working for you and
Yeah.
they're making phone calls from their cell phone to your
Mm-hmm.
client,
Yeah.
don't you want it to say the name of your company?
Yeah.
And furthermore, your client always has your office number, not your technician's cell phone number.
Yeah.
So while times have changed, I will stand on a soapbox to say you still need on hold messaging, because if you're using your cell phone
Mm-hmm.
and you do it the right way, you can press the pause button. And if you have Shark, you'll have a customized message advertising for your business. Now, if I own a business,
Mm-hmm.
I want my opportunities everywhere to get that name out there. And there's no better way than to speak to your current client or your prospect about your business. So
Yeah.
that's the base and that's the core. And it's a long-winded way for me to tell you that yes, entrepreneur started on hold messaging, and to this day, almost 25 years later, while it appears differently, we are still providing that main service, and it's there day in and day out, 365 days a year. And that's why I love it so much, because it's not expensive, and it's a great marketing tool for clients to use.
I remember, so one of our PR clients, George Arco. Hey, George, if you're listening,
Mm-hmm.
he sold the company, but I remember George used Shark Creative, and I remember us like using that opportunity to tighten the message and change it for
Yes.
different seasons. So if we were working on power washing, right, then we would change the message to kind of focus on that, and it was great. So,
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I kind of forgot about that. That was
yeah.
a connection that you helped make for me. And George and I had become friends too through this. He's a great guy and ran a wonderful business. And
Yeah.
he's in a service oriented business, so it made a
Hmm.
lot of sense. People would call into the office, "Hey, hold on a minute." You know, you're not looking to put people on hold, but sometimes you can't help it. If the phone
Yeah.
rings, and hopefully, folks, your phone has been ringing, people are calling you. But it isn't just about the incoming calls. It's also about the outgoing calls. I could make a phone call out and maybe
Hmm.
something happens. I need to look something up. I need to I mean, life happens.
Yeah.
Something, maybe there's a
Hmm.
child in the background or there's
Yeah.
something's going on. Hey, could you give me a second?
Yeah.
Put him on hold and
Hmm.
leave him there for a few seconds and let him hear the message that's tailor made and is professional. Um,
And
so
people
that's,
also don't know all that you do, right? So that's one of the things that I always loved about it when we were working with George before he sold the business, that it was like when someone was on hold, they know you for this service, right? How many of us have different buckets and they know you for this service? And then as you're listening, it's like, oh, I didn't know that they did
yeah,
this. So that's like, I feel like that's kind of the power. So,
happens all the time.
yeah.
There's, it helps you kind of cross pollinate the other services in your business. And it's a perfect, I like to say, an untapped resource because
Hmm.
even after all these years that we have been in business, I'm still picking up new clients all the time and
Hmm.
they've been in business forever and they never had a professional on hold message. So it's still very relevant. And I love the reaction that I often get
Hmm.
when we produce it. And I can't wait to like have it go live. And my favorite phone call is to call them and say, all right, let me listen to it and it's just a very rewarding feeling knowing that this was something we did. It's just a small little piece, but it's a part of their marketing plan. And
Hmm.
I'm really I'm proud of it. I'm very
You
proud
should
that
be.
that
You
that we
should
that we
be.
developed this a long time ago. I mean, we didn't create the industry, but we
Yeah.
certainly have put a spotlight on that kind of messaging. And
Hmm.
especially in this area where we are, I'm happy to say we're one of very few companies that actually do it. So
Yeah.
we not only produce it, but we're vocal about it. And, and
Hmm.
and we're very active in the community. And to answer your question, besides the on hold, we
Yeah.
kind of morphed into other audio solutions. And
Hmm.
and that would be we refer to overhead music. So when you
Hmm.
walk into a doctor's office or you walk into an auto dealer, if they have
Hmm.
music playing, maybe they're getting the music from Shark. It doesn't have to be Pandora or
Hmm.
Spotify. Shark has its own. We have 80 different stations that we pay a license for. So
Hmm.
rather than pay the license to Pandora, and they do a great job, by the way. I mean, I love
Yeah.
Pandora. I listen to Pandora and Spotify all the time. But we
Hmm.
also can provide that kind of music. And the difference is we can then customize your overhead music
And tie
with
in their messaging.
with messaging, just like on the
Mm.
phone, only
Yeah.
here it's mostly music. And then every 15 minutes or 20 minutes or
Hmm.
30 minutes or 1 hour, whatever you want, we set the station for your needs. And so
Hmm.
you could be listening to upper cervical chiropractic radio, or you could
Hmm.
be listening to Purple Frog Graphics radio, or whoever the
Hmm.
client is. It's
Yeah.
all about them. It's all about their business. And we try to, and you're in the nonprofit space, we try
Hmm.
to encourage our clients to put a spotlight on what good they're doing in the community. And if it's,
Yeah.
if they're helping Feeding Westchester or if they're
Yeah.
helping the Child Care Council, wouldn't that
Hmm.
be a great way, not only on the on hold, but overhead? Let your patrons
That
know
you're,
that
yeah,
you're
that you're
doing something for
supporting a
the community. Yeah.
nonprofit. Yeah, that you're walking with like a support connection for their cancer walk. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So yeah, that's awesome.
So there's that piece. And
Yep.
then the other leg is podcasting, which we're doing right now. And you're in
Yep.
this space as well.
Yep.
And podcasting has so many benefits. Here we
Hmm.
are having a creative, organic conversation, which is recorded,
Yep.
which can be used in many different ways. It can be split up for social media for shorter little bites. Or you
Hmm.
can, if someone's really interested, they can hang out for 25 minutes and listen
Yep.
to the in-depth conversation and get all this
Get all this
fantastic
goodness.
knowledge about the power of
We'll
audio.
share it.
So yeah, and so we've become kind of a local go-to for producing and publishing other podcasts for people. Now we
Hmm.
have our own version, which is
Yeah.
Westchester Talk Radio, which is really
Hmm.
a sort of a mobile version, right? You see us out on all
Yeah.
these events where you're a big
Hmm.
part of it, and we'll invite people to come and talk with us on Westchester Talk Radio, and it sort of it's an immersive experience for that guest for 5 or 6 minutes, and then we'll share that little bite, and
Hmm.
that's a mini podcast. It's their little
Yeah.
podcast, but then that also gets them thinking, ooh, maybe we should do our own podcast at our office or publish one, and we can offer that service. And there's plenty to go around. I mean, there's so much content, so many
Yeah.
opportunities to do content, and we're in that space. We're really growing that space right now. I
Good.
mean, we feel very fortunate to have kind of the background between Jim being on the production
Yeah.
and myself with the marketing and the relationships and kind of
Mm-hmm.
bringing that together and really helping all kinds of businesses with their podcasts. And I think we produced the Business Council's
Yeah,
podcast,
BCWs, which is a
BCW.
great one.
Yeah,
And I'm an
BCW.
ambassador for BCW. So
Yeah,
they're my buds over there. Love Marsha. So for
great
sure.
people, and they're
Yeah.
on to something. It's called the BCW Podcast Network.
Mm-hmm.
And in their case, we're producing it's really 4 to 5 different shows every month.
Oh
And
wow. I didn't
those
realize it
get,
was that many. That's awesome.
yeah. So it's not just Leadership Unleashed, but it's
Mm-hmm.
Advocacy and Politics Unplugged. It's
Mm-hmm.
the Member Spotlight. It's What's Trending. And now we just introduced Nonprofit Voices of Impact. And we had
That's
Jan
great.
Fisher on as the first guest of that show
Love
last month.
Jan.
And they could all be found on the internet. You can go to Spotify, you can go to iTunes, you can go to Deezer or Amazon Music, type in
Mm-hmm.
BCW Podcast Network, and they're hosting everything. We are behind the scenes publishing it, really
Mm-hmm.
producing it, publishing it, and like we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
in their case, we were able to sort of convert one of their offices into a studio, sort
Mm-hmm.
of like this a little bit, and that becomes their space, and we can have folks come up there and be the guests on their show, and
I
it's
love
it's really
it.
it's really great. I love seeing Linda and John and Marcia and Amanda sort of enjoying the process.
Yeah.
And they really are. They're having fun with it. They're putting out some awesome content.
Mm-hmm.
I welcome your listeners to listen to their show, and we're happy to be thought of as the company to produce that for them. Um, that's
Love that.
and it's only growing from here. So,
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So let's shift gears a little bit. So tell me about, Andrew, what sets you apart from others that are kind of in your space?
well, I think just the fact that the as I mentioned already, I think the foundation of Shark is really all about audio, and almost everybody that works for me in some capacity is
Mm-hmm.
tied to terrestrial radio. So we
Mm-hmm.
all sort of have a passion for what radio was doing and
Mm-hmm.
still
And still
doing it.
doing.
Quite
Yeah.
quite frankly,
Yeah.
I want to put out this misconception. People think radio is dead, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Even though we are in the podcasting space, and
Yeah.
that obviously has cut into radio in some respects,
Mm-hmm.
but when you think about it, terrestrial radio is really the beginning of podcasting. So
Yeah.
when back in the day when we would do an on-site broadcast, well, if you
Mm-hmm.
recorded that and replayed it, guess what, guys? That's a podcast. And
Mm-hmm.
so what radio is able to still do is get you the information in real time. And at the same time, if you want to listen to any one of those programs, you can listen to them on demand. And
Mm-hmm.
so radio at one time was maybe 93% of Americans would listen to the radio in a
Mm-hmm.
given week. Well, with all people telling us that radio's dead, do you know what it is now?
I was going to ask, what is that number?
Just about 93%.
Oh, really?
So it hovers somewhere between like 89% and
Okay.
93%, depending on
Mm-hmm.
the market and depending on
Okay.
where you are. But my God, that's still an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
And so even when people might say they don't listen to the radio, they are listening to the radio. They just don't even realize it. They might
Eh,
actually be in the car being exposed to it, or they might be somewhere where the radio's on. The difference is people are not listening as long as they used
Mm-hmm.
because of all the other spaces, right? You can
Yeah.
listen on demand. There's obviously podcasts, there's
Mm-hmm.
Apple, iTunes. So
Yeah.
people are streaming a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
But But again, to get back to the original question, I think what separates us is that we have this love for radio, um, and as a result of that, know what the power of audio is all about. So that's at the core of what we're doing.
And
It
everything
isn't
you're
just a,
doing.
it isn't just a transaction for the on hold business. It's how can we increase the engagement in your space, whether
Mm-hmm.
it's in the physical space for
Mm-hmm.
overhead, or
Yeah.
whether it's on the phone, or whether it's having an experience with the podcast. That's really what separates us, and I think our marketing is pretty exceptional. I think we
Mm-hmm.
we are very careful and conscious of how we look and sound, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a consistent message, I think, through all the platforms. And at the end of the day, Cher, I like having fun. And
Mm-hmm.
I think our brand is speaks that way. Like it's not crazy for me to do something like this, right? It's just like we're we're a little silly, we have a good time. We're only here once. We have one
Mm-hmm.
life to live. I want
Yeah.
to enjoy what I do, and I
Amen.
do enjoy what I do. I love it. Like I just came from an event before I got on your wonderful show. It was
Yeah.
a networking breakfast for nonprofit Westchester, and credit to them. They put on a tremendous breakfast this morning, and there were
Yeah.
150 some odd people there. But we had
Nice. I know
the
Angelique from my office was there.
yes, Angelique was
She
there, and
said it was
I wanted
great.
to talk with her, but there was just too much happening. But we were there. We were set up with our event space, and we were able to interview a handful of people. And
Nice.
the point that I'm making there is that we love it. Like we
Mm-hmm.
enjoy being immersed in our wonderful community. Um, Born and raised in Westchester, so it means a lot to me. I live in Fairfield. We also have
Mm-hmm.
a Fairfield County version of what we do here,
Mm-hmm.
and so in this area where I live and breathe, I'm able to kind of cast my little net and
Mm-hmm.
be a part of the community. And I think that's what really separates us. I have some amazing competition um, throughout the country for the on hold business, and in fact, I'll be at a conference in March with my cohorts in the business, and
Yeah.
they run their businesses, in many cases a lot like us, but in many
Mm-hmm.
cases a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of work in silos because we're this area,
Yeah.
whereas a friend of mine who has a business in Florida is doing it there. Another one out
Mm-hmm.
in Indiana or in Texas or in California. And so when we go to this conference, we kind of share ideas, and we share where the business is going. And I learned a lot from the folks that are doing something similar to me. But in this area, we're able to wave our shark flag
Mm-hmm.
and have a lot of fun with it. And that's, I think, what at the end of the day is I want my kids to see me having a good time
Yeah.
making a living, because they're going to have to spend an awful lot of time working
Yeah.
if they want to provide the way I'm hoping I'm providing for them, and I want them to enjoy what they do.
Exactly.
And
Life is too short, right? You got to do
yep,
something you love. Yeah, for sure. For
yep.
sure. Thank
So
you for that. That's great. All right. So, what's new for you? Anything new coming up? Anything new you're working on? Well, the podcasting is fairly new, right? I would
it
say.
is the fact that we aren't just podcasting as Westchester Talk Radio, right?
Yeah.
That's really what we've been doing for 10 years
Yeah.
is put a spotlight on all these events that you put together. Sometimes we're
Hmm.
there. That's a mini podcast, if you will. But
Hmm.
now that people are coming to us to actually publish for
Produce
them, that
stuff. Yeah.
it's fairly new.
Hmm.
I would say another division or another piece of what we do is actually this guy right here, this events piece.
Hmm.
Um, the last several years, we've produced the outdoor concert series, the Robeson Summer Concert Series,
Yep.
and the White Plains Hospital screenings under the stars. And that's another, it's a seasonal part of our company where from like June to September, we work very closely with Westchester County Parks.
Hmm.
And a shout out to Parks. They do a
Parks,
phenomenal
they're
job. And
great. Yeah.
I'm happy to have been able to align myself with such a wonderful partner. And they've turned to Shark to help them really kind of produce these events. And it's the relationships with the sponsors that help make this happen. So we're kind of at the tip of the sphere on that. And
Hmm.
that's how we're able to bring all these wonderful events to the community. So they're free. And when this summer, we're going to have 7 free concerts thanks to Robeson. We're going to have
That's great.
3 outdoor movies thanks to White Plains Hospital. We're going
Mm.
to be enhancing the experience for the 3rd of July music and fireworks. Thanks to Bruni and Campisi, they have a tailgate party, or what we're calling a family fun day, leading
Mhm.
up to those fireworks. So we're you know somewhat in the event space, but very specific to
Mhm.
Westchester County Parks.
Mhm.
We have a pop-up event that we're doing with 914 Pop-ups that's going to
Mhm.
be coming in May and also in September. Two
Mhm.
more really fantastic events at Kensico.
Mhm.
And for your listeners who have never been to Kensico Dam, it's a great way to see it. And we
Yeah.
absolutely welcome you to join us this summer. We're going to have some amazing cover bands. There's a Tom Petty cover band. There's going to be a Billy Joel cover band, Taylor Swift cover band, and we're still
Nice.
working on some other ones. Last summer we had over 15,000 people come
Wow.
to these events. That was a cumulative number, but
Mhm.
you can expect a few thousand friends enjoying themselves on the lawn at Kensico, and also down at Glen Island Park in New Rochelle. It's another one. We're going to have two concerts there
Nice.
and one movie.
Awesome.
So that's fairly new in that we keep adding to the program. The
Mhm.
pop-up events are going to be brand new this year, and
Mhm.
that really just means there'll be maybe 30, 40 vendors
Vendors.
with probably a band on stage just to kind of tease the summer concerts. But really, it's about just coming in and checking out all these local vendors that have things to sell, and again have a good time at such an event.
Always good things happening in Westchester County. Love it. Definitely.
Yes,
Always
there
good
are.
things and a lot of good free things, which is fun just to kind of come out
Yeah.
and support the local vendors and hear some good
Mhm.
music and food trucks, all that kind of stuff. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. All
Yes.
right. So last but not least, this is my favorite question because again, we are entrepreneur focused and you thank God you're thriving, but I'm sure there was times where you weren't thriving, right?
Mm.
So I want to ask you to share some advice. Someone who's having a rough patch or someone who maybe is thinking about starting a new business and kind of
Mm.
afraid to take that jump. Or
Yeah.
maybe someone's been in business for a really long time and just, feeling
Hmm.
stuck. So any of those, give us some
Yeah.
advice that you
What
would
a great
share.
question. Well, look, there's no doubt there's always going to be ups and downs in all business, right? It can't
Yeah.
always be,
Mm-hmm.
peaches and cream, and we've had our share
Yeah.
of lots of peaks and valleys.
Mm-hmm.
It's a risk. You take a risk as an entrepreneur because you don't really know. I mean, you have to believe. First of all, advice would be to make sure you believe in what you're doing,
Yeah.
be fair, um, you know, be honest,
Mm-hmm.
have integrity. And I think perseverance is probably the thing that you need the most, because when you realize things are tough, that's when you have to you got to have faith in yourself and dig in, and know that if you believe in what you do, that it will happen for you. It might take a
Yeah.
little longer, but
Mm-hmm.
we've all been through some tough times. I mean, I had one example would be, um, as I started the call it the Shark Media side, which is really more about the podcasting, the events, and everything else. We had a very significant client that was really supporting me. And they were one of my biggest clients when I was at WFAS Radio. So when I kind of left the radio business to start this other part of Shark, it was
Mm-hmm.
a huge risk for me. I
Mm-hmm.
left my cushy sort of job that I knew I would have a certain amount of income.
Yeah.
And while the company wanted me, FAS made some changes. They moved into the city. I could
Yeah.
have went into the city. I could have went up to Bridgeport and had a nice list and maintain the same sort of income. I had two small children, just bought a new house.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I were just getting started, and I said, you know what, Jill, I really believe in Shark, and I'm going to go out on my own now, completely on my own. And I had the confidence because I knew that I would be able to bring along this client, and it
Mm-hmm.
was Entergy in the Endpoint Energy Center,
Yeah.
and they were wonderful people to me. We had, it was a 10-year relationship that
Mm-hmm.
made the ask a lot easier,
Yeah.
because when I was ready to make the move, I had their support. And so that gave me the lift and the confidence to be like, okay, I can start Westchester Talk Radio. I can get out there and do it. And so you and I actually did a lot of things back then. We
Yeah.
were able to cover a lot
Hmm.
of events as a result of having them behind us.
Yeah.
And now I'm getting to the point where, okay, well, it turned out just as COVID happened, well,
Hmm.
we kind of knew it was coming, but the state shut them down, which meant my sort of support system was going to be shut down
Yeah.
from an advertising standpoint, and that was a huge blow.
Hmm.
And I could have put my head in the sand, and I could have said, you know what, I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe, you know, had I not had enough confidence, I would have maybe went back to work for somebody else.
Hmm.
And there was a fleeting thought, but
Yeah,
I
there's
said,
times
nope, I'm not going
we
to
think
do it.
about it.
I am not going to do it because I
Yeah.
want to keep at it. Now we had fortunately a nice base with the on hold business. And as
Hmm.
I'm speaking now, I have my partner Jim Feldman's in the room. He's our engineer, and Jim and I have been doing this for a long, long time. So thank God I had that as like a
Hmm.
base to kind
Yeah.
of lean back on, but it still wasn't actually enough really to sustain um, everything that I need to do for my family.
Yeah.
So we kind of pivoted into um, bringing on other sponsors and just holding true to the fact that we had a really great product because people still wanted us to come out in the community.
Yeah.
I didn't have the backing to
Hmm.
necessarily do it. So
Yeah.
we were a little more cautious about how many events we were going to do. But
Hmm.
as it turned out, it was a COVID kind of intersected at the same time. And in
Hmm.
some ways, that was a help to us in respect to we were able to turn things online and we didn't need to be out in the community,
Community.
which was more there were more resources needed for that. So we
Hmm.
turned it into this forum
Hmm.
and we were able to kind of sustain the same visibility
Hmm.
but not have necessarily the same resources that were needed. And
Hmm.
so by the time we came out of that, I was able to sort of lift the tide with the likes of Robeson and White Plains Hospital and now A.G. Williams Painting Company and Orange County Pools and Spas and Michael Labriola Landscape Design and Tompkins Community Bank, Thompson and Bender. And I'm mentioning them because I am so grateful
Hmm.
for them because
Hmm.
they believed in Shark. And it's because of those folks that I can now say yes to more events in the community.
Hmm.
And and I mentioned Jim Feldman. We have Jim Feldman who is now able to actually be with me on site, and we're really turning that part of the business into another way for us to showcase what we do and to
Hmm.
be able to say, hey guys, if you like this, we could do this for you too. We can create a podcast for you. And that's kind of where we are right now. So we're like riding this little wave of we've made it through. We're out in the community more. And it was perseverance that really kept that going. Had I
So the
not had the perseverance,
believe, folks,
yeah,
believe,
believe in
believe.
yourself. Absolutely
Yeah.
believe in yourself. And don't be afraid to seek out help and like ask others
Hmm.
who may have been in it before because you'd be surprised. People are willing to help if you ask for the help. You have friends out there
Hmm.
that want
They want you to
and
be successful.
they want to help. And so
Yeah.
but they'll never know if you don't ask.
Yes.
And
Closed mouths
I
don't get
leaned on
fed. You've
people.
heard that
Yeah,
before, right? Closed
that's right.
mouths don't get fed. So,
That's
yeah.
exactly right. So don't be
Yeah.
afraid to ask for help. And I absolutely believe that. And I'm really excited for what's to come because we do have a lot of really wonderful things coming up. We have a lot to offer. There's plenty more relationships to be had, and we're
Love
certainly
it.
very grateful for the ones that we currently have, and we want to make those even stronger.
I love it. Well, friend, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all of these nuggets and really kind of sharing your journey. I'm sure that this will be helpful for our listeners. And guys, Coffee with Cher, you can listen Spotify, iHeartRadio, all of anywhere where you're looking for your podcast. Let's tell them where they can find you, Andrew. What's the best way for our listeners to find you?
Well, thank you again, Cher, for all that. I really enjoyed, even though I have to admit I wasn't drinking coffee in here. I won't tell you what I was drinking, but it wasn't coffee. Um,
Is
it
it
and it
something
was
good?
yeah, it was water. It's healthy for you. So there's that.
What is
All right. So
good?
anyway, um, best place to find us. I love to push the Instagram handle. It's the easy.
Okay.
I think most people are on there. Just find us at Shark Creative. Just don't forget to put a C. It's
Okay.
SHARC Creative. You could see like all of the things we're doing. We're pretty quick with posting. So if we're at an event this morning, you're gonna as soon as we get off of here, you'll see a post on there. Um, and you can find us obviously sharkcreative.com or even westchestertalkradio.com.
Okay.
And you know
Awesome.
what? You can always pick up the phone. We love
You can
phone
always
calls.
pick up the phone,
You
guys.
can you can call 866 Shark with a C 99.
All
We've
right.
had that number for a long time and we still answer those calls. So we're happy to hear from you.
Can always pick up the phone, folks. Well, thank you, Andrew, for being here. So great chatting, and I will see you at the next event.
Absolutely. Charisse, thank you so much. And thank you for all the wonderful things you do in the community. You're always smiling and you really are an inspiration to lots of people. And I'm so happy to know you the way that I do.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. All right, friends. Thanks for being here.